The first rule of spiritual warfare is this: when someone initiates a humiliation ritual against a chosen one, they better make sure they understand exactly who they're dealing with. Right now, while you're living your life and minding your own business, someone else is conducting an elaborate campaign designed to warp reality itself. This isn't casual gossip or petty drama. This is systematic psychological warfare with your name at the center, your energy as the target, and your destruction as the ultimate goal. But here's what they don't know. Chosen ones don't just survive these attacks. We alchemize them into rocket fuel. The person orchestrating this campaign believes they hold all the cards. They've positioned themselves as the narrator of your story, the director of your reputation, the architect of how others perceive you. In their mind, they're conducting a masterpiece of manipulation where you play the role of the obsessed, the desperate, the broken one who can't move on. They've cast themselves as the coveted prize, the one who graciously moved forward while you remained pathetically attached. But the universe operates on laws they've never studied, and chosen ones function under principles they've never encountered. While they're busy trying to author your humiliation, forces beyond their comprehension are already authoring their exposure. The very foundation of their campaign contains the seeds of its own destruction, and you, magnificent, powerful you, are about to become both witness and beneficiary of the most spectacular backfire in manipulation history. Here's what's actually happening behind the scenes of their elaborate performance. They're using your name as ammunition in conversations designed to make others jealous. Every mention of you becomes a strategic weapon deployed to suggest that you're still attached, still hoping, still orbiting their supposedly superior existence. They paint pictures of your alleged desperation to make themselves appear more desirable to new romantic interests. They craft narratives about your supposed inability to move on to make themselves seem like the prize that everyone fights to keep. The psychological sophistication of this campaign is actually impressive in its calculated cruelty. They've studied your triggers, mapped your vulnerabilities, and designed their attacks to hit exactly where they believe you're weakest. They know which mutual friends are most likely to carry information back to you. They understand which stories will sound most believable to people who don't know you intimately. They've weaponized every private moment you shared, every insecurity you revealed, every dream you confessed. But there's a fundamental flaw in their strategy that will prove fatal to their entire operation. They're fighting someone who no longer exists. The person they're targeting, the one whose reactions they've predicted, the victim they've scripted, that version of you has already been transcended. While they were busy planning your destruction, you were busy becoming indestructible. The first signs of their miscalculation are already emerging, though they're too intoxicated by their own perceived power to notice. The people they're gossiping to are starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Why is someone who supposedly moved on so focused on their ex's emotional state? How does someone who claims to be the winner spend so much time talking about the person they supposedly defeated? The contradictions in their narrative are creating cracks in their credibility, and those cracks are about to become chasms. Meanwhile, your actual energy signature is telling a completely different story. The peace radiating from your presence contradicts every tale of your alleged desperation. The confidence in your voice when you speak contradicts every story of your supposed breakdown. The joy in your laughter contradicts every narrative of your rumored obsession. Reality and their fiction are diverging so dramatically that even casual observers are beginning to notice the gap. This creates the first fundamental tension that will drive everything that follows, the collision between performed narrative and authentic reality. They're expending enormous energy, maintaining a story that becomes more implausible with each passing day. You're expending zero energy countering their fiction because your truth speaks louder than their lies ever could. This energy differential is about to create consequences they never saw coming. The second driving force emerges from the spiritual principle they've unknowingly activated, the law of energetic reflection. Every attack they launch at you becomes a boomerang trajectory that will eventually return to its sender. Every story they tell about your alleged desperation reveals their own hidden desperation. Every moment they spend focused on diminishing you becomes a moment stolen from their own growth and healing. They're about to discover that the universe doesn't permit the sustained persecution of chosen ones without exacting a price from the persecutor. The third dynamic involves the community of people witnessing this entire drama unfold. Unknown to both you and your antagonist, everyone around this situation is being educated about character, authenticity, and the difference between performed confidence and genuine self-possession. Your behavior under fire is teaching lessons they'll remember long after this situation resolves. Their behavior under the delusion of power is revealing truths about their character that can never be unseen, but the most significant force of all is the one they cannot see because it operates beyond their level of consciousness: your transformation. While they're busy trying to keep you trapped in an outdated version of yourself, you're evolving at an accelerated pace. Their pressure is creating the exact conditions needed for your metamorphosis. Their opposition is providing the resistance required for your strengthening. Their attempts to diminish you are catalyzing your expansion into someone they could never diminish. The stage is set for the most spectacular reversal in manipulation history. They believe they're writing your tragedy, but they're actually scripting their own. They think they're directing your humiliation, but they're actually choreographing their own exposure. They imagine they're controlling the narrative, but they're about to discover that chosen ones don't exist within narratives. We transcend them entirely. The humiliation ritual has begun, but not for who they think. The first crack in their carefully constructed facade appears when their closest allies begin to notice the obsession. The contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Someone who claims to have moved on completely, yet brings you up in conversation more than any other topic. Someone who insists they're over the situation, yet seems to know every detail of your current activities. Someone who portrays themselves as having won, yet spends significant energy convincing others of their victory. Their friends start exchanging glances. Their new romantic interests start asking pointed questions. The very people they recruited to validate their narrative begin to recognize it for what it actually is: the desperate performance of someone who can't let go. But here's where their campaign takes a sinister turn that reveals the true depth of their desperation. They're not content with simply bad-mouthing you to mutual friends. They've escalated to actively trying to interfere with your progress, your opportunities, your connections with others. They've become so invested in your failure that your success feels like a personal attack on their reality. This isn't just gossip anymore, this is sabotage. They're reaching out to people in your professional network, planting seeds of doubt about your character. They're monitoring your social media activity with the dedication of a full-time investigator. They're creating fictional scenarios designed to make you appear unstable to anyone who might be getting close to you. The casual cruelty has evolved into systematic warfare, and they've appointed themselves as the general of an army fighting against your peace. This intensification reveals something crucial about their psychological state. They need you to fail more than they need themselves to succeed. Your healing journey threatens the story they've built about themselves. Your growth contradicts the narrative they've crafted about your weakness. Your happiness exposes the emptiness of their performed contentment. They're not just attacking you, they're defending against the threat your transformation poses to their entire identity. But this is where their fundamental misunderstanding of spiritual law creates the first major reversal. The universe doesn't permit the sustained persecution of someone who's genuinely trying to heal and grow. Every attack they launch activates protective forces they can't see and defensive mechanisms they don't understand. Their escalation isn't hurting you, it's accelerating your elevation. The more energy they invest in trying to stop your progress, the more progress you make. The more attention they focus on disrupting your peace, the more peaceful you become. The more effort they expend trying to dim your light, the brighter you shine. They've unknowingly become the resistance training that's building your spiritual muscles. Meanwhile, something extraordinary is happening in your reality that they can't perceive because they're operating from a completely different frequency. The right people are being drawn to your energy like magnets. The opportunities that align with your authentic path are presenting themselves with increasing frequency. The abundance that flows to people who mind their own business and focus on their growth is beginning to manifest in your experience. This creates a devastating contrast that becomes impossible for neutral observers to ignore. While they're consumed with monitoring and disrupting your life, you're busy building an actual life. While they're invested in spreading stories about your alleged desperation, you're creating a reality so fulfilling that their absence becomes irrelevant. While they're performing their superiority, you're embodying your authenticity. The people watching this dynamic unfold begin to see the truth hiding in plain sight. Who's really obsessed? Who's really unable to move on? Who's really threatened by the other person's happiness? The answers become obvious to everyone, except the person too invested in their delusion to see reality. Their romantic relationships begin to suffer under the weight of their obsession with you. How can someone build a genuine connection with a new person when they're still emotionally invested in destroying their previous connection? How can someone offer their full presence to a current partner when significant portions of their mental energy are consumed with monitoring and manipulating an ex-ping? Their new relationships become casualties of their inability to let go. Their friendships start to feel strained as people grow tired of hearing the same stories about your alleged shortcomings. The excitement of shared gossip fades into annoyance at repetitive complaints. Friends begin to wonder why someone who supposedly won the breakup spends so much time talking about the person they supposedly defeated. The very people they recruited to validate their narrative begin to question the storyteller instead of the story's subject. But the most significant shift occurs in their professional and creative endeavors. The energy they're channeling into your destruction is energy unavailable for their own construction. The mental bandwidth consumed by their campaign against you is bandwidth unavailable for their own growth and opportunities. They're literally stealing from their own future to fund their vendetta against your present. This creates what spiritual traditions call the mirror effect. The universe begins reflecting their energy back to them with mathematical precision. The isolation they're trying to create for you begins manifesting in their own experience. The desperation they're projecting onto you begins consuming their own emotional state. The failure they're trying to manifest for you begins appearing in their own endeavors. Nineville, your evolution continues at an accelerated pace precisely because of the pressure they're applying. Every attack teaches you something new about your own strength. Every betrayal reveals another layer of your resilience. Every moment of their persecution becomes a moment of your preparation for something greater than either of you currently understands. But let's not sugarcoat it. The truth is still hidden. It's been twisted. It's been buried under censorship, algorithms, and fear. Yet your heart never stopped recognizing what's real. That's why you're still here. That's why you never tapped out, because you felt the simulation glitch beneath your feet. You know this world is rigged, and you're done waiting for permission to rise. The obsidian inner order wasn't built for the curious, it was forged for the committed. This is for the full-time chosen, the ones who came to lead, the ones who see beyond the veil and act anyway. Inside, we hold weekly Zoom calls that cut through the noise. We share hidden teachings most were never meant to hear. We train in psychic warfare, strategy, and spiritual technologies they've kept locked away for centuries. This is the toolkit for the real ones, the ungovernable, the impossible to erase. It's time to remember who you are. The link is in the description. Your real life begins inside. The gap between their perception of you and your actual reality grows so wide that it becomes a chasm. They're still fighting a version of you that existed before their attacks began, but those attacks have forged you into someone completely different. They're shooting at a target that has moved dimensions. Their weapons are designed for someone who no longer exists. The friends who initially enjoyed the drama of their gossip begin to feel uncomfortable with the intensity of their obsession. The romantic interests who were initially flattered by tales of your supposed jealousy begin to feel disturbed by the amount of mental space you occupy in this person's consciousness. The community that briefly entertained their narrative begins to recognize it as the projection it always was. This is when the spiritual principle of energetic return begins to manifest in visible ways. Their life starts reflecting the energy they've been putting out. The destruction they've been focusing on begins appearing in their own experience. The chaos they've been trying to create for you begins swirling around their own circumstances. But you, magnificent, evolving you, are ascending beyond their ability to affect. Their attacks are becoming background noise to your symphony of growth. Their attempts to drag you down are highlighting how high you've risen. Their efforts to diminish you are providing the exact contrast needed to make your light undeniable. The reversal is accelerating, but they're too consumed with their campaign to notice that they've become the very thing they accused you of being. The mirror is reflecting their truth back to them, but they're too busy staring at you to see their own reflection. The climax is approaching, and it won't be what anyone expected. The moment of truth arrives not with fanfare, but with a whisper that becomes a roar. It starts when someone close to your antagonist, a friend who initially bought into their narrative, a romantic interest who believed their stories, a family member who supported their version of events, finally asks the question that shatters everything: why do you still talk about them so much? This simple inquiry creates a crack in the foundation of their entire campaign. Suddenly, the elaborate justifications they've constructed for their behavior begin to crumble under the weight of a truth so obvious that even they can't deny it anymore. The person who moved on doesn't conduct psychological warfare against their past. The person who won doesn't invest this much energy in proving their victory. The person who's genuinely better off doesn't need to work this hard to convince others of their superiority. But the real earthquake comes when they realize that their obsessive focus on you has been visible to everyone all along. The friends they gossip to have been watching them, not you. The romantic interests they tried to make jealous have been taking notes on their behavior, not yours. The community they attempted to turn against you has been observing their character, not your alleged flaws. To Ponabien, the humiliation they designed for you has been playing out in their own life while they were too focused on you to notice. Every story they told about your supposed desperation revealed their own. Every moment they spent trying to make you look obsessed demonstrated their obsession. Every attack they launched to make you appear unstable exposed their instability. This is when the cosmic joke reaches its peak: absurdity. The person who orchestrated an elaborate campaign to make you look like the pathetic one has become the pathetic one. The individual who tried to paint you as unable to move on has revealed themselves as the one trapped in the past. The manipulator who attempted to make you the villain of the story has become the only villain anyone can see, but the reversal goes deeper than mere exposure. Their campaign hasn't just failed, it has become the catalyst for your most extraordinary transformation. Every attack they launched became training for your spiritual muscles. Every betrayal they orchestrated became education for your discernment. Every moment they invested in your destruction became investment in your resurrection. The person they're still trying to humiliate no longer exists, replaced by someone who has integrated every lesson their persecution provided. The individual they're still trying to break has been reforged into someone unbreakable. The victim they scripted in their narrative has become the victor of a story they never intended to write. Your success begins manifesting in ways that make their narrative impossible to maintain. The career opportunities that emerge operate on a level they can't even comprehend. The relationships that develop reflect a depth of connection they've never experienced. The abundance that flows into your reality demonstrates principles they've never learned. The peace that radiates from your presence contradicts every story they've told about your alleged misery. Meanwhile, their life begins to mirror the fiction they created about yours. The isolation they projected onto you begins manifesting in their own experience as people grow tired of their obsession. The desperation they attributed to you begins consuming their own emotional landscape as they realize their campaign has backfired completely. The failure they tried to manifest for you begins appearing in their own endeavors as the energy they invested in destruction bears destructive fruit. But the most devastating blow comes when they realize that their entire campaign has made you the main character of their story. The person they tried to relegate to a supporting role in their narrative has become the central figure around which their entire existence revolves. They've become a satellite orbiting your energy while you've become the sun of your own solar system. The friends who initially enjoyed their gossip begin to feel embarrassed by their participation in what they now recognize as targeted harassment. The romantic interests who were briefly entertained by their stories begin to feel disgusted by the cruelty they witnessed. The community members who temporarily bought into their narrative begin to feel ashamed of their willingness to judge someone without hearing their side. This creates a cascade of social consequences they never anticipated. The very people they recruited to validate their campaign begin to distance themselves from the campaign and, by extension, from them. The support network they built on shared negativity crumbles as people realize they don't want to be associated with such systematic cruelty. The reputation they tried to destroy, yours, becomes more solid, while their own reputation suffers the damage they intended for you. The spiritual principle of energetic return completes its cycle with mathematical precision. Every ounce of energy they invested in trying to diminish you returns to diminish them. Every moment they spent focused on your alleged downfall manifests as their actual downfall. Every attack they launched to destroy your peace becomes a force that destroys their peace. But you, radiant, powerful, transformed you, are ascending beyond their ability to comprehend, let alone affect. Their attacks have become the very foundation of your unshakable confidence. Their betrayals have become the basis of your impeccable discernment. Their persecution has become the catalyst for your protection. The community that witnessed their campaign recognizes you as someone who maintained grace under fire, dignity under attack, and growth under pressure. These qualities mark you as someone who can be trusted with greater responsibilities, deeper relationships, and more significant opportunities. The same people who witnessed their cruelty understand that you emerged from it, not bitter but better, not broken but breakthrough. The ultimate irony reveals itself in its full glory. Their humiliation ritual has become your coronation ceremony. Their attempt to make you small has made space for you to become infinite. Their effort to dim your light has provided the contrast that makes your brightness undeniable. They thought they were writing your ending, but they were actually scripting your beginning. The dust settles on a battlefield where only one warrior remains standing, but not because you fought, because you transcended the entire conflict. While your antagonist was busy conducting psychological warfare, you were conducting spiritual alchemy, transforming every attack into armor, every betrayal into wisdom, every moment of their persecution into preparation for your elevation. The friends who participated in their campaign against you are now reaching out with apologies, finally understanding that they were manipulated into becoming weapons in someone else's vendetta. The romantic interests who heard their stories about your alleged desperation are now seeking connection with you, recognizing authentic strength when they see it. The community that briefly entertained their narrative now sees you as someone who embodies the kind of character they want to emulate. But the most profound transformation has occurred within you. The person who entered this situation has been completely reborn through the fire of their opposition. You've developed spiritual muscles that can only be built through resistance. You've gained clarity that can only come through betrayal. You've discovered strength that can only be forged through pressure. Your antagonist, meanwhile, finds themselves trapped in a prison of their own making. The energy they invested in your destruction has left them depleted. The obsession they cultivated has become their cage. The narrative they created has become their reality, but with them cast as the villain instead of the hero. They've become everything they accused you of being, while you've become everything they pretended to be. The reversal is complete, but your victory isn't about their defeat, it's about your transcendence. You've risen to a frequency where their attacks can't reach you, a dimension where their opinions don't matter, a reality where their presence has become optional rather than central to your experience. The opportunities flowing into your life operate on principles they've never studied. The relationships developing around you reflect depths they've never experienced. The abundance manifesting in your reality demonstrates laws they've never learned. You've become proof that chosen ones don't just survive targeted destruction. We use it as raw material for our reconstruction. Their humiliation ritual has been transformed into your resurrection ceremony. Their attempt to author your downfall has become the rough draft of your comeback story. Their effort to make you the antagonist of their narrative has revealed you as the protagonist of a much larger story, one where their role was always temporary, educational, and ultimately beneficial to your evolution. The circular nature of this journey becomes clear as you recognize that their attack was never really about you. It was about their fear of what you represent. Your growth threatened their stagnation. Your healing challenged their victimhood. Your peace contradicted their chaos. Your authenticity exposed their performance. They weren't trying to destroy you. They were trying to destroy the mirror that reflected their own unlived potential. But mirrors can't be broken by the images they reflect, and chosen ones can't be diminished by those who fear their light. You've become the living proof that attempted humiliation rituals only work on people who believe they deserve humiliation. You've demonstrated that systematic persecution only affects those who grant the persecutor power over their reality. The person who began this journey seeking to defend themselves against false narratives has evolved into someone who doesn't need defense because they operate beyond attack. The individual who once worried about their reputation has transcended into someone whose character speaks louder than any gossip ever could. The chosen one who felt threatened by manipulation has transformed into someone who transmutes all opposition into opportunity. Your antagonist's obsession with your downfall has become the very force that launched your ascension. Their focus on your destruction has become the energy that fueled your construction. Their investment in your humiliation has become the foundation of your elevation. They've become the unwitting architect of your triumph, the unconscious catalyst of your transformation, the accidental author of your victory story. And in the end, the greatest irony is that their presence in your narrative, even as antagonist, has made your story more compelling, your victory more meaningful, your transformation more powerful. They thought they were writing your tragedy, but they were actually providing the conflict that made your hero's journey possible. The humiliation ritual is complete, but not for who they intended. You stand transformed, elevated, and victorious, not through fighting, but through transcending, not through revenge, but through renaissance, not through defeating them, but through becoming someone they could never defeat. The chosen one always wins, because chosen ones don't participate in games designed for ordinary consciousness. We create new games with different rules, play on different levels, and win by changing the very definition of victory itself. This is your story, and this is your triumph. The ritual has ended, and your reign has begun.